Hello and welcome to today's analysis. Today I'm discussing state of emergency that has just been declared by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria against River State of Nigeria. Recall that a few hours ago, the President of Nigeria declared in a state broadcast, declared a state of emergency against Governor Fubara of River State and has suspended the governor for 6 months and has appointed a military administrator to take over the affairs of River State and has also suspended the legislature in River State. A lot of questions have been asked since the declaration of the state of emergency by the president. Does the president have the power under the constitution to declare state of emergency? Can the president suspend the governor because of the state of emergency that has been declared? Can the president suspend the legislature also because of the state of emergency that has been declared? What will happen after 6 months, right? How will Governor Fubara return to office after 6 months? Is there any special thing that needs to be done for him to return? Or he will automatically return to office after 6 months? These are many more are the questions that I am addressing, in this video. And I'm going straight to the provisions of the Constitution because that is the organic law of Nigeria. And therefore, this discussion is going to be predicated strictly on the Constitution. One, does the president have the power to declare a state of emergency? The answer is yes. Which section of the Constitution says that the president can do that? Section 305 of the Constitution. It says, the president may, by instrument published in the Gazette, issue a proclamation of a state of emergency in any part of the Federation. So this provision gives the president the power to declare state of emergency. After the declaration of the state of emergency, the president is expected to present the, the Gazette to the National Assembly, that is to the Senate President, and also to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who will in turn convene an emergency session of these two houses for them to deliberate on it. By the Constitution, the governor of a state can also see reason to declare a state of emergency in the state, but he has to do so by two-thirds majority of members of the legislature of his state, and also then call on the president to declare state of emergency for that part of the state that has been troubled, and there is need for declaration of state of emergency to restore peace and order. So that shows clearly with these sections of the Constitution that I have just mentioned, 305 answers the question as to whether the president can declare state of emergency. The answer is yes, he can declare state of emergency in any parts of the Federation of Nigeria. But can the president just declare state of emergency for whatever reason? Is he mandated by the Constitution to declare state of emergency on listed reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or so, right? Now that takes us again to the same Constitution, section 305. The president cannot declare state of emergency anyhow or as he so desires to do. He can only declare state of emergency in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Now let's go to the provisions of the Constitution, 305. It says, it gives the conditions for declaration of state of emergency. And it says, the president shall have power to declare state of emergency only when, one, the Federation of Nigeria is in imminent danger of invasion or state of war. Maybe Niger wants to invade Nigeria from the borders, right? The president of Nigeria has the power given to him directly by the Constitution. In such situation, there is a plan, imminent, danger of invasion of a state of the Federation of Nigeria by Niger. The president of Nigeria has a right given to him directly by the Constitution to declare state of emergency in that state to be able to tackle and address that situation. Number two, when the Federation is at war. So when the Federation of Nigeria, any part of the Federation of Nigeria is at war, the president is mandated by the Constitution to declare state of emergency to take care of that war situation so as not to spill over and engulf the entire country. And so the Constitution gives the president the right, when the country of Nigeria, the Federation of Nigeria, is at war, to declare state of emergency in such states. Number three, when there is actual breakdown of law and order and public safety to require extraordinary measures to restore peace. That is the number three reason when the president of the country would be allowed by law to declare state of emergency. I take that again. When there is actual breakdown of law and order and public safety to require extraordinary measures to restore peace. At that point, the president has the power in the Constitution to declare the state of emergency in that state. Number four, where there is a clear and present danger of actual breakdown of public order and public safety. Again, where there is a clear and present danger of actual breakdown of law and public order and public safety. The president, in such circumstance, has the power to declare state of emergency in line with the Constitution. The number five condition is where there is an occurrence of natural disaster. Remember COVID. During the presidency of President Muhammadu Buhari, there was COVID, and the president had to declare state of emergency on COVID, and then restricted the movement of citizens of the country, and then made a dusk to dawn curfew, and said you cannot move during this time, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, restricting the rights of citizens of the country because there was natural disaster. So that was the president declaring a state of emergency to curtail movement and curtail other actions, because the Constitution says where there is natural disaster. So if there is earthquake in any part of the country, the president will have the right to declare state of emergency to be able to address that natural disaster. Number six condition is where there is any other public danger which constitutes a threat to the existence of Nigeria. Now, let me analyze this briefly. In a situation that took place in the northeast of Nigeria, where there was almost breakdown of law and order, some local governments in northern Nigeria were taken over by Boko Haram, and Nigeria was being threatened by the activities of this group. The president of the country, in such circumstance, is mandated by the Constitution to declare state of emergency. And you would recall that President Goodluck Jonathan had declared state of emergency in some states in the north, and so as to address the security situation. State of emergency simply means that normal life is going to be restricted. We have dusk to dawn curfew. You have checkpoints in so many parts of the states, right? People are asked, to come down from their vehicles and be thoroughly checked and all that, to restore peace and order in the states because of the precarious emergency situation, security situation that has arisen. But you would recall that when Goodluck Jonathan declared state of emergency in the states in the north, Goodluck did not suspend the governors. Why? Because Goodluck was informed. The argument at the time was that the Constitution does not allow the president to remove a democratically elected government. Now the question is, does the Constitution now allow the president to remove a democratically elected government? If the president declares a state of emergency, this section of the Constitution, 305, does it allow the president to also remove a democratically elected governor or suspend him for a period of 6 months or more, and so on? So that takes us back to the question whether the president can, whether the Constitution, it takes us to this question: has the Constitution stated that the governor shall be suspended? The answer is there is no such provision in the Constitution. The president has not been given the power to do so. I did say that the analysis is based on strictly on the Constitution of Nigeria. I have mentioned Section 305 of the Constitution of Nigeria, which is online. You can Google, you can see it. You check these sections of the Constitution, these provisions. There is no single provision of that section that allows the president to suspend the governor of a state. It doesn't. There's no such provision. And in the interpretation of statute, interpretation of constitution, provisions of law, you don't import into the constitution what the constitution has not stated. It is often said that if the constitution intended that the president should remove or suspend the governor for even 1 day or 2 days, the constitution would have stated so. That is how the constitution is interpreted. So where the constitution has not stated that the president can suspend the governor during the time of declaration of state of emergency, then the president will be acting outside the constitution to suspend the governor of a state. He will be acting without having the support of the constitution to suspend the governor of a state. In that case, what the constitution contemplates is a situation where the president declares the state of emergency, allows the governor to remain because he was elected for a term, and then put in extra security measures in the states. Deploy the security forces to the states to ensure that there is peace and harmony, there is law and order that has been restored to the states. Again, I have not seen any provision of Section 305 of the Constitution or any other provision of the Constitution, whether from Section 1 to other sections of the Constitution, that allows the president or that authorizes the president of Nigeria to suspend a state governor democratically elected for 1 day, for 2 days, for 1 month, or 3 months. But does that mean that a governor cannot be removed at all? A governor can be removed, but through a process that is clearly provided for in Section 188 of the Constitution. And that is the process of impeachment. That is the only process that a governor of a state can be removed. There is no process in the Constitution whatsoever for suspension of a governor for 1 day, for 2 days, for 1 month, let alone 6 months. I have said, talking strictly based on what the Constitution has provided, Section 305 of the Constitution, there is no provision for the suspension of the governor of any state of the Federation, be it Rivers, be it another state of the Federation, where state of emergency is declared. And this perhaps explains why President Goodluck Jonathan, during his tenure, declared state of emergency in some states in the north that were really troubled, and yet did not suspend any of the governors because he did not find support in the Constitution to suspend the governor. Now, the other question is, does the law provide for a military administrator? No. The Constitution has not provided for military administrator. As a matter of fact, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria says that no part of Nigeria shall be governed in any way other than democratic means, right? So the Constitution of Nigeria does not contemplate the appointment of a military officer serving or retired in a democracy. It does not contemplate that. And when you look at this section of Declaration of State of Emergency, no section of this Constitution, no provision of this section has said that you can appoint a military administrator to replace an elected governor. Does the Constitution allow suspension of the House of Assembly? Again, we go back to the same Constitution, Section 305. I have not seen any such provision in this section that allows the president of the country to suspend the legislature. I have not seen it. It is not there in any section of the Constitution. The only way you can suspend or remove a member of the legislature is to do recall, which is in the Constitution. His constituents will do recall him back to the constituency and remove him from the State House of Assembly. But for the president to suspend the legislature, it is not there in the section that allows the president to declare state of emergency, namely section 305 of the Constitution. Now, let's take it that Governor Fubara is going to serve the 6 months that the president has pronounced, right? Now, what happens to the governor after the 6 months? The answer is that he returns to his seat. He returns to his seat. No decision of the Senate, of the House of Reps is needed, no authorization of the president and all that. The state of emergency lapses upon 6 months, upon the expiration of 6 months, the state of emergency lapses, and therefore the governor returns to his seat. Can Fubara approach the court? Yes, he can approach the court to challenge this because he's a Nigerian citizen and has the right to go to court to challenge the declaration of state of emergency and his suspension from office. Now, what would be the fate of the commissioners that Fubara appointed? All of them stand suspended because of the declaration of the state of emergency, and the military administrator that has been appointed by the president would be expected to work with some persons. I am sure that the office of Attorney General, which is very critical and which is in the Constitution, a lawyer will have, if no other person is appointed, a lawyer will have to be appointed by the military administrator for purpose of administering law and order in River State for the time being of the 6 months. Now, there are some questions here, right? When can the state of emergency be revoked? The president has just made the state of emergency, has declared state of emergency in River State. The question is, can it be revoked by the president immediately or so soon thereafter? Or who can revoke the state of emergency? Number one, it can be revoked by the president himself. The president can make another broadcast today or tomorrow and say the state of emergency that I declared is hereby revoked. The Constitution allows him to do that. Still Section 305. Section 305 also says that the state of emergency can cease if it is not supported by the National Assembly within 2 days by a resolution of 2/3 majority. When we talk about the National Assembly, the Senate and the House of Representatives are expected to take part on the issue of declaration of state of emergency. Remember that the president has just gazetted. He's expected to send it to the National Assembly immediately for deliberation. If upon the deliberation, the National Assembly says, no, Your Excellency, the situation in Rivers has not warranted the declaration of a state of emergency. The situation in Rivers perhaps is political, and therefore it's not one of the conditions for declaration of state of emergency. It has nothing to do with invasion. It has nothing to do with war. It has nothing to do with natural disaster or any other condition given. And so the National Assembly can say, Your Excellency, the state of emergency that you have declared in Rivers State, we are not in support of it. And by 2/3 majority, they can vote against it. And if that is done, the state of emergency lapses and Governor Fubara returns to the National Assembly. Do you see the National Assembly doing that? That's for you to say. Number three, the third condition that the Constitution has given is upon the expiration of 6 months, the state of emergency lapses automatically. But note also that the Constitution also says that the National Assembly, through the president, shall have the power to extend the state of emergency by another 6 months, right? If the situation in River State, if they consider the situation in River State to still be something that has not improved, the National Assembly, working in conjunction with the president, they have the right to extend the state of emergency for another 6 months. That's it about the provision of the law regarding the declaration of state of emergency. What's your take about what has happened in River State? Do you think it is the best thing to be done to River State at this point? Do you think that the situation in River State had warranted and has justified the declaration of state of emergency, suspension of the governor, suspension of the legislative arm of government? Do you think that state of emergency for political reasons, political disagreement, is accommodated in the conditions for declaration of state of emergency in Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? What do you think? What is your advice to Governor Fubara at this time? What is your advice to the State House of Assembly at this time? What's your advice to the President of Nigeria? What's your advice to the National Assembly? Who is right? Who is wrong? Whatever be your comment, drop it in the comment section so that together we can also learn from you and expand the narrative. Many thanks, and do remember to follow this channel or subscribe to it so that together we can continue to form a big family where we sit down to discuss breaking issues, side by side with the law. Many thanks.